Hello! Today I'll be talking about mental health disorders, and I will be focusing on substance-related and addictive disorders. According to the Canadian Mental Health Association, substance-related and addictive disorders are treatable mental health conditions characterized by the compulsive, continued use of substances such as alcohol, drug, nicotine, or behaviors like gambling, despite significant harmful physical, mental, and social consequences. Carl Jung says, every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, morphine, or even idealism. Interestingly, the Bible does not explicitly mention modern illicit drugs like cocaine and heroin by name. However, it addresses the underlying principles of drug use, such as self-control, sobriety, and the care of the body extensively. While the specific term addiction is not used, the Bible frequently warns against drunkenness and substance abuse, often treating it as a sin or a dangerous enslaving behavior. Let's look at the onset of drug abuse: pressure, crisis, and urge for recreation. You see, in an ideal situation, life is normal as people work and earn. They are making enough to afford their basic needs: bills, rent, mortgages, and loans. This is normal until when the crisis gradually creeps in and evolves to something very serious. My presentation will be based on John. Of course, that's not his real name. He is well educated and was settled in his dream job, enjoying every bit of it. But the mistake that turned his life upside down was one and simple. He ignored one installment of a car payment, postponed it, promising he would deal with it in the following month. This oversight sounded simple, but it never forgave him. It overlapped and became too much to pay at one go. Then another one came. He paid it at the expense of other small monthly bills. Before he could even process what was happening, he was dealing with multiple, overwhelming, unpaid bills. Though he was shocked, life went on anyway without waiting for him to catch up. By the time he was ready to deal with it, he was so far behind with debts. He received a letter from the lending institutions threatening to repossess his home and car. In a span of 4 months, he was reminded that he is in collection and his credit record has significantly dropped. See how a simple budgeting miscalculation led a financially stable banker into serious frustration, depression, and stress. Friends, this is already enough pressure to move a normally functioning person from stress to crisis. At this point, John's brain is not functioning well. The crisis has evolved and John has lost his job because it is impossible to focus with this level of stress. Because our poor John does not have a resilient mind to tackle situations like this, he is now homeless. Being homeless means going to the homeless shelter. This complicates the situation because the family must separate at this point. But since children are not allowed in the shelter, the Ministry of Social Services has taken them away and they have ended up in a foster care. Through deep reflection, it has dawned on John that he has lost his job, home, family, and most unfortunately, functionality. These multiple losses are too much for one person to absorb at a time. So, like any normal human being, John has found a coping mechanism in drug abuse. But this has even worsened his situation because he is also losing his physical health and even his life. As time goes on, saving John is becoming more complicated. The damage is multiple. Recovery needs long-term multiple therapies, and chances of getting back to normal are a tall order. Due to desperation, resentment, and self-sabotage, John can either die of suicide or drug overdose. He is also facing a slow death due to gradual organ failure. But there is hope. If he remains positive and self-driven to recover and chooses to seek my support as a pastoral caregiver, I'm going to have 4 sessions of 1 hour each with him. I will be using my first session, which is the encounter stage, to create rapport and triage John's immediate needs. I'm going to create a boundary and set a practical goal. Up to this point, I've diagnosed his crisis as a loss of property, family, functionality, mental health, and drug addiction. His coping mechanism is drug abuse and alcohol addiction. At the same time, I'm empathizing by acknowledging that his loss is a difficult situation to deal with, validating his feelings and reactions in the words, "You are behaving normally in this abnormal situation." Again, up to this far, I've gathered enough knowledge to triage the situation ahead of me. I am aware of my potential and limitation, and at this time, I know that John can use my pastoral care. But I am also aware that along the way, he may need other resources. We mutually schedule our meeting in 4 sessions. I'm also making it clear that my therapy will be strictly pastoral care. But should more resources be needed, we will either call or refer. In the engagement stage, we are mutually agreeing on the very practical and immediate needs. John opens up to narrate how it all began, to where he is, and is exhibiting pain, bitterness, guilt, shame, resentment, and desperation. These, friends, are typical symptoms of mental health situation of people who are struggling with drug addiction. The same feelings have led him to lose focus in life, track of his physical routine, sleep, appetite, and weight. His pain and bitterness is related to losing his profession and investment. He is hard on himself because he thinks he was foolish. He is also guilty because he feels that his wife and children are looking down on him as a defeated husband and father. Anger makes him resentful because he thinks God and everyone else hates him. He was a professional who wore a suit to work as a financial advisor, and now he's living in the shelter, depending on donated food and clothes, and begging people to give him change to sustain his addiction. Pride stands in his way of help because he keeps bragging about how he used to sit in his office instructing his junior staff on what to do. I'm also noting that John's Christian faith and community are not relevant at this time because he doesn't think they are helpful. I also keep double-checking the depth of his guilt, just in case he's contemplating suicide. But I'm not finding any suicide ideation. I'm keeping him focused on his situation and encouraging him to talk about it. At the same time, I'm checking his ambition and encouraging him to have one and a strategy towards it, because I want the solution to come from within him. Friends, at this level, I'm realizing that my immediate intervention is to stabilize John. He is a believer whose faith is in crisis and doesn't mind spiritual encouragement. I take this opportunity to read scripture for him and suggest Psalm 23. This verse resonates so well with John's lonely situation because it reassures him that he is not alone in the battle and that the Lord is with him, helping him fight and will walk him through the end. In the subsequent sessions, we meet weekly and remain focused on pastoral counseling for spiritual support, self-reconciliation, self-care, and recreational activities and sense of fulfillment. During the sessions, we read and talk about verses related to fear, anger, and guilt, like John 1 verse 9, Ephesians 4, 26 to 27, and Joshua 9. We are focused on our goal, but I'm taking failure and distractions graciously. We have agreed that John will gradually cut his daily drug and alcohol consumption, and he will engage in at least 15-minute walk for physical exercise. He will also consider volunteering in the community. I also suggest him to go where people are, especially for peer support, given how effective community heals. Our weekly sessions begin with prayer and self-reflection. I utilize the first 10 minutes to reinforce the theological reflection. This way, we engage with the scripture in trying to answer the difficult questions. But I'm careful not to plunge deeper into the mystery of God, which can make John overthink and get confused. We keep it simple by reading a verse like, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." We are also looking at other resources. A quote like, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." The Romans 8:28 is a biblical verse stating that bad situations are used for higher purpose. The quotes, together with real-life teaching that if people can ignore contempt and resentment, a crisis will refine them, making them stronger and more resilient in their life post-crisis. After these reflections, we review our assignments and progress. It happens that John has made some baby steps. In the past week, he did not touch alcohol at all. He reached out to the local seniors hall to volunteer, and he went for 15-minute walk twice a week. When I ask him how he feels, he expresses a sense of achievement, and I can see some sense of fulfillment and excitement. We capitalize on this to keep us moving. Every achievement matters as we highlight them. And we make a celebration for the little achievements made. Up to this far, it is evidently clear that John is making progress towards spiritual, mental, and emotional recovery. But we have to sustain the momentum. The best thing to do is to set another goal to be achieved before the next meeting. He agrees to put effort into what he did throughout the week. This means following a routine and checking the boxes, plus exploring new practical ideas. By the time of disengagement, we had had 4 sessions. We took the opportunity to walk through our journey from start to finish, reviewing highlights and shortcomings. In our review, we noticed significant progress, but also identified a few areas of concern that still need improvement. Unfortunately, drug and alcohol abuse had seriously affected John's important organs, such as the liver, heart, and brain. As a result, we mutually agree that he needs a referral to a doctor. Also, stress, guilt, and other pressure in the mind are seriously affecting his mental well-being and functionality. So, I suggest he sees a psychiatrist and he is open to referral. And again, because addiction is still strong, John agrees to go for treatment in the local facility. Even though he meets his wife regularly, John still needs help to see his children. He's also entitled to disability income as well as employment insurance. I refer him to a social worker in the community to help him with application for this financial assistance as well as arrangement to see his children for healing. I suggest several churches and John chooses the local Pentecostal church for Sunday worship and Wednesday evening for Brethren Bible Fellowship. Up to this time, John doesn't look like he's really ready for work yet, and he won't be until after the next 6 months of treatment pending review. But he is assured that he will get a better housing program as soon as he starts getting his disability and EI income through the help of the social worker. We mutually agree that we will go through the 6-month treatment, follow the doctors and psychiatrists' advice, and work with the social worker. If things go well, the social worker will help him with job search. In the meantime, my doors remain open for any emerging pastoral needs that may arise. Friends, thank you and may God bless you.